Please like the video and share it so that it reaches many more people and you get sawaba, or rewards from Allah. This could be a sawabe jariyah or continuous reward for you long after you are gone.
Volume 7, Book 68, number 466. Narrated by Aisha. Allah's apostle entered upon me at Sarif while I was weeping, because I was afraid that I would not be able to perform the Hajj. He said, "What is wrong with you? Have you got your period?" I replied, "Yes." He said, "This is a matter Allah has decreed for all the daughters of Adam, so perform the ceremonies of the Hajj as the pilgrims do, but do not perform the tawaf around the Kaaba." Allah's apostle slaughtered some cows as sacrifices on behalf of his wives. Volume 7, Book 68, number 467. Narrated by Al-Bara. I heard the Prophet delivering a sermon, and he said, on the day of Eid al-Adha, the first thing we will do on this day of ours is that we will offer the Eid prayer, then we will return and slaughter our sacrifices, and whoever does so, then indeed he has followed our tradition. And whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer, what he offered was just meat that he presented to his family, and that was not a sacrifice. Abu Burda got up and said, "O Allah's apostle, I slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer and I have got a jadha which is better than an old sheep." The Prophet said, "Slaughter it to make up for that, but it will not be sufficient for anybody else after you." Volume 7, Book 68, number 468. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet said, "Whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before the Eid prayer should repeat it, slaughter another one." A man said, "This is the day on which meat is desired." Then he mentioned the need of his neighbors for meat, and the Prophet seemed to accept his excuse. The man said, "I have a jadha which is to me better than 2 sheep." The Prophet allowed him to slaughter it as a sacrifice. But I do not know whether this permission was general for all Muslims or not. The Prophet then went towards 2 rams and slaughtered them, and the people went towards their sheep and slaughtered them. Volume 7, Book 68, number 469. Narrated by Jundub bin Sufyan al-Bajali. I witnessed the Prophet on the day of Nahr. He said, "Whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before offering the Eid prayer should slaughter another sacrifice in its place, and whoever has not slaughtered their sacrifice yet should slaughter now." Volume 7, Book 68, number 470. Narrated by Al-Bara. One day Allah's apostle offered the Eid prayer and said, "Whoever offers our prayer and faces our Qibla should not slaughter the sacrifice till he finishes the Eid prayer." Abu Burda bin Niyar got up and said, "O Allah's apostle, I have already done it." The Prophet said, "That is something you have done before its due time." Abu Burda said, "I have a jadha which is better than 2 old sheep. Shall I slaughter it?" The Prophet said, "Yes, but it will not be sufficient for anyone after you." Volume 7, Book 68, number 471. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet used to offer as sacrifices 2 horned rams, black and white in color, and used to put his foot on their sides and slaughter them with his own hands. Volume 7, Book 68, number 472. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet offered as sacrifices 2 horned rams, black and white in color. He slaughtered them with his own hands and mentioned Allah's name over them and said takbir and put his foot on their sides. Volume 7, Book 68, number 473. Narrated by Masruq. That he came to Aisha and said to her, "O mother of the believers, there is a man who sends a hadi to Kaaba and stays in his city and requests that his hadi camel be garlanded while he remains in a state of ihram from that day, till the people finish their ihram, after completing all the ceremonies of Hajj. What do you say about it?" Masruq added, "I heard the clapping of her hands behind the curtain." She said, I used to twist the garlands for the Hadi of Allah's Apostle, and he used to send his Hadi to Kaaba, but he never used to regard as unlawful what was lawful for men to do with their wives till the people returned from the Hajj. Volume 7, Book 68, number 474. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. During the lifetime of the Prophet, we used to take with us the meat of the sacrifices of Eid al-Adha to Medina. The narrator often said, "The meat of the Hadi." Volume 7, Book 68, number 475. Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that once he was not present at the time of Eid al-Adha, and when he came, some meat was presented to him. And the people said to him, "This is the meat of our sacrifices." He said, "Take it away, I shall not taste it." In his narration, Abu Sa'id added, "I got up and went to my brother, Abu Qatada, who was his maternal brother and was one of the warriors of the Battle of Badr, and mentioned that to him. He said, 'A new verdict was given in your absence, i.e., meat of sacrifices was allowed to be stored and eaten later on.' Volume 7, Book 68, number 476. Narrated by Salama bin al-Aqwa. The Prophet said, "Whoever has slaughtered a sacrifice should not keep anything of its meat after 3 days." When it was the next year, the people said, "O Allah's Apostle, shall we do as we did last year?" He said, "Eat of it and feed of it to others and store of it, for in that year the people were having a hard time and I wanted you to help the needy." Volume 7, Book 68, number 477. Narrated by Aisha. We used to salt some of the meat of sacrifice and present it to the Prophet at Medina. Once he said, "Do not eat of that meat for more than 3 days." That was not a final order, but, that year, he wanted us to feed of it to others. Allah knows better. Volume 7, Book 68, number 478. Narrated by Abu Ubaid. The freed slave of Ibn Azar, that he witnessed the day of Eid al-Adha with Umar bin al-Khattab. Umar offered the Eid prayer before the sermon and then delivered the sermon before the people, saying, "O people, Allah's Apostle has forbidden you to fast on the first day of each of these 2 Ida, for one of them is the day of breaking your fast, and the other is the one on which you eat the meat of your sacrifices." Volume 7, Book 68, number 479. Narrated by Abu Ubaid. In continuation of 478. Then I witnessed the Eid with Uthman bin Affan, and that was on a Friday. He offered the prayer before the sermon, saying, "O people, today you have 2 Eids, festivals, together, so whoever of those who live at Al-Awali, suburbs, would like to wait for the Jumu'ah prayer, he may wait, and whoever would like to return home is granted my permission to do so." Then I witnessed the Eids with Ali bin Abi Talib, and he too offered the Eid prayer before the sermon and then delivered the sermon before the people and said, "Allah's Apostle has forbidden you to eat the meat of your sacrifices for more than 3 days." Volume 7, Book 68, number 480. Narrated by Salim. Abdullah bin Umar said, Allah's Apostle said, "Eat of the meat of sacrifices of Eid al-Adha for 3 days." When Abdullah departed from Mina, he used to eat bread with oil, lest he should eat of the meat of Hadi, which is regarded as unlawful after the 3 days of the Eid.